Hello everybody, Grant Keene here again, City Councilman for Walhalla. And there is something, I mentioned this briefly in my last video about annexation was coming down the road. Annexation is here. City Council has already voted once for annexation. They have the last vote on annexation. This becomes ordinance. This becomes the law in Walhalla. If this goes through, if people do not turn up, and this goes through, Tuesday, March 25th at the depot at 5:30, annexation is going to go through. Right now, I am only one lone vote to try to stop this, and they're going ahead with this full steam, and it's the last reading, the last time you have to check in on this and to tell council what you feel about it. And when I'm going to go through what this means, but after you hear it, I think you're going to want to come and say your piece, and everyone will have that chance. So once again, this is this Tuesday, March 25th at the depot, not at City Hall, at the depot at 5:30. And this is talking about annexation. Annexation is where the city says we're going to take the properties around the city and include them in the city. So now let me explain what that means. Now bear with me. This is really complicated. I've got an illustration I'll show you here in a minute, but I've got things written up on the board to help me remember to hit every point. So follow me here. Originally, they were talking about annexation, and they said annexation, we're only going to look and include businesses and industries and developments, new developments in the city. That has all changed. The lawyer has told them, no, can't do that. That'll be trouble in the law. You won't be able to defend that. You're going to have to do all or none. Well, they decided to do all. So now this affects private residences, everybody that is right around the edge of town. And it's going to go far beyond that. It's going to affect everybody around the edge of town. Then when they get those in, everyone past that. Then we get those in, everyone past that. Everyone that does not live in the city, but gets Walhalla water. That is the key thing. So it's not businesses only anymore. It's everyone. It's all tied to water. Now what do I mean by that is that if you live outside the city, but you get Walhalla water, if that account changes, right now you don't have to be annexed into the city. If you live outside the city and you get Walhalla water, you are grandfathered in. You can remain getting the water and still remain outside the city. But if you sell that property of yours, your property, the person who buys it, automatically, they have to sign up for a new water account. And when they sign up for that account, they automatically are petitioning, asking the city, oh please, may I come in the city? And the city doesn't have to take them in right there. It's up to the council to decide. So there could be 50 homes like that, and the city might not do anything for a time, but when the city wants, says you're in the city, just like that. Everything changes for them because they have automatically petitioned it in order to get our water. So now there's some different rules about if you're right next to the city limit, if you're away from the city limit, your property doesn't border the city, but it's 2 doors down or 3 doors down or a mile down or half a mile. There's different rules about that. And then also, if your house changes hands because you leave it, you die, you leave it to your spouse, you leave it to your kids, they're then grandfathered in as well. They'll have to apply for a new water contract, but they don't have to sign the petition that says, oh, I want to be in the city. So that's the only exception, is that right now, if you do not have, if you're not in the city, you don't want to be in the city, but you have Walhalla water, you're okay. That's what they're saying right now. Rules can change. And if your spouse or your children inherit your property, they can get a water account and don't have to sign up to say, I want to be in the city either. That's the only exception. Everybody else, you leave it to someone else. You leave it to a nephew, a niece, you leave it to a cousin. You just leave it to anything that, or you sell it. Always selling it. If you sell it, then automatically the city's got a hold and they can include you in the city without any more ado. They just make a vote, you're in the city. Okay, what that means, if you're now in the city, what that means is that your taxes, you're going to pay city tax. You're going to pay county tax like you do right now if you're not in the city, but then there's taxes that we pay in the city that you don't know anything about. And I should have got my tax bill. You can call up to the tax office and ask them how much it is to be in. I was going to read my tax bill out to see how much more, but that's taxes on everything. That's taxes on your house, taxes on your personal property. It is more expensive to live in the city just because we pay taxes in the city that you don't pay. This is actually the reason this has come about. And it's already voluntary. Like right now, if you live at the city limits, you can decide, hey, I want to be in the city. At any time, you can ask the city, hey, I'm right at the edge of the town. I'd like to be in town. And you ask them, the city's going to say, okay. I mean, maybe there's some reason they wouldn't, but not generally. We don't have people doing that. We had Zaxby's do that because they're a business. They wanted to be in the city. That's understandable. The little amount of taxes they pay in the city is not a big deal to them. It's much more big deal for a personal residence. It may change. It may change the value of your property being in the city. It could change it because some people want to be in the city, so you're selling a house, you're right next to the city, or you are in the city. Some people want that. They want to be in the city, so they're willing to pay more to be in the city. Other people don't want to be in the city. And the fact that you're out of the city is they're willing to pay more because they don't want to be in the city. So all of a sudden, if you're now included in the city, there might be a smaller pool of people that you can sell your house to. In which case, your house could be worth less when you only have a couple buyers compared to 6 buyers, let's say. That could be. It could go either way on that. The thing is, if you're adjacent to the city and they want to be included in the city, they can buy the house and join up anytime. Anyhow, that's all complicated. So I want you to look at this illustration I have here. My wife's going to get the light so we don't have the glare. And I set up this illustration right here so we can better understand all that I talked about. I know it was complicated. So here's Walhalla, and here's the city limits around Walhalla. Here are the people like me and my neighbors, and we all live in the city and go about our business. And it doesn't seem much different than the folks just down the road. In fact, our property joins the countryside. The city limit runs all along some of our property here. And life's not much different for us here than our neighbors out here. But what I was saying in all this, if these folks who get water right now sell their house, and we've got this annexation ordinance in place, the people that come in are automatically signing up saying, I want to be in the city. So what happens, the city just says, okay, you all sold your houses, eventually you will, you're now in the city. And then they continue to do that because everyone's house is going to sell sooner or later. And so the city limit keeps moving. And the city limit keeps getting bigger. Like that. Well then, so it's gotten bigger. So then you're saying, well, hold on. What about these houses out here that sold that weren't adjacent to the city limit? Did they have to sign this thing? They did have to sign it. When you sold your house that's 3 doors down from the city limit and you're getting Walhalla water, you too signed up, oh, let me be in the city when there's a chance. So what happens, now the city limit is moved, and now you're next to the city limit. So automatically, even though you weren't, automatically, because these guys were included in, automatically it includes them. Because they too sold their property and had Walhalla water. And it keeps on going and keeps on going and keeps on going. Where is the end to this? Well, you know where the end to this is? The end is where Walhalla stops selling water. But you realize that the majority of our water customers are not inside the city limits? The majority of our water customers are outside the city limits. So as long as we keep selling water farther and farther and farther away, we keep expanding our city limits farther and farther and farther, and we just keep on getting the taxes. Okay, now let's go back up to the board here. So the city wants this to be a very agreeable thing to everybody. They want people to just think, man, this is the best thing. Annexation, it's just the best thing. You just want to sign up. And the question is, well, if it's such a great thing, how come people aren't just beating down City Hall's door to get in the city? They're just not. I mean, go up to City Hall and ask the administrator, when's the last time someone, a private citizen, came up and just wanted to be in the city? They just out there and they're thinking, boy, I'm just living right here next to town. How great it would be just to be in the city. That's not happening. You know, but they're pitching it like this is the best thing since sliced bread. And here's their selling points on this. You got to know this because they're not being quite genuine, a little disingenuous in how they're selling it. And I'm trying to cover it all here because I don't want to be confused that I'm being disingenuous. I want to be completely genuine. So here you are. So one of the things they're selling this with is that, well, hey, if you get to be in the city, you have better police protection and better fire protection. And so when they brought this up in our last council meeting, the chief of police and the fire chief were both there. And I asked them both, you know, don't we have an agreement? Don't we get paid? I was talking to the fire chief. Don't we get paid by the county to cover everybody's residences around the city? He said, yes, sir. We do. We already got an agreement. So is the public safety going to be any, and is the fire protection any better? No, because we're already getting paid by the county to cover all the buildings, all the homes and everything a good ways, a long ways outside the city. Well, so you're like, well, maybe it's better because you're closer to the fire station. Well, you're not any closer to the fire station. You're the same distance. The city limit just changed. So fire, that's not true. That's not true, the public safety, that fire gets better. Well, you say, well, police protection gets better. Well, so the police chief was there. And so I said, Tim, now don't we have an agreement of mutual understanding with the county, mutual aid with the county, that, hey, if we help you, you help us? And he said, yes, sir. So your police protection's not getting any better living around Walhalla because we already have an agreement with the county saying, hey, we're going to cover those places because if we're closer, if we're the first ones that can get there and respond, we're going to be there. If it's the county and the county needs to help us in the town, the county helps us in the town. It doesn't change. But that's a selling point that they're giving. Nothing changes as far as that goes. Whether you're in the city or out of the city, that might change in some places. It doesn't change here. Well, they say, well, utility rates are going to go down. That is true. If you come into the city, you will pay a cheaper rate on your water and on your sewer and on your garbage than if you're out of the city. That's one of the benefits. That's an absolutely valid benefit of being in the city. You own the plant, you own your part owner in the sewer, you own the sanitation trucks, and so you do not pay as much money. You can call the water department, call City Hall, and they'll tell you exactly the differences in those rates. And you can figure it out for you how much you pay, whether you're out of the city or in the city. Then they say, well, your insurance could go down. Your insurance could go, your homeowner's insurance could go down if you're in the city. That could be. Talk to your insurance man if that happens if you're in the city. I don't think it's going to matter of the city limit. I think it's going to matter of the fire protection. The further you get away from the fire department is generally the higher the rates are going to go. The closer you know this, the closer you are to a fire hydrant, the lower your rates can be. So that really doesn't matter once again. It's not going to get any better for you generally just because you're in or out of the city limit. Once again, check with your insurance agent to know for certain. Then it says, well, your city services are going to go up. I don't know what city services they're talking about there. That you're going to get city services. Already, if you have Walhalla water, you have the option to get your trash picked up by Walhalla. So if your trash gets picked up, your trash gets picked up. I don't know how that gets any better. We've already talked about the fire is unchanged. The police coverage is unchanged. So what city services would this be? It might be when you have brush laying out along the side of the street and whatnot in the city. We get the brush, we can put certain things like that. We don't have to run up the mountain or out in the country to drop it off at the recycling centers. So that could be somewhat, not as big as it may seem. Then it says, why, in the end, life may cost less. The increase of taxes may be less than the decrease of all these things. Now, how does that work? Am I thinking that through right? You might save more money on not paying less in your water bills than the increase in taxes is. So that's one thing. We got a scenario. They gave us a scenario on a $100,000 house. That could be. Once it goes much over that, and what can you buy for $100,000 anymore? It's not. It's absolutely not that way. I said to the administrator when she made that point, I said, well, if we're not making more money in the city, why do we want to do this? Why does the city want to annex if we're not making more money? Well, yeah, the point is, everybody on council, everybody in the city knows that this is all about making money. So, may cost less if you come in the city. Don't count on it. They're not banking on it. They're doing this because, as we said before, when you take the money from Peter, you got to rob Paul. So then the point is made that this is not forced. We're not forcing anybody to do this. And that's true, kind of. So say you go and sell your house, and you just live outside, right adjacent to the city, and you live right outside the city limits, and you sell your house, and they go down, that person that bought your house goes down to City Hall because they got to sign up a water contract. The old owner's contract doesn't work for the new owner. So they go down to sign the water contract, and then right there they said, okay, you're going to have to sign this document that says that you want to be annexed into the city. And oh, yeah, that's what you have to do. You mean if I'm going to use water out here at this house, I got to do that? Yeah. Well, sounds like you're kind of forced into doing it, aren't you? Say you know it ahead of time. Say they tell you, the realtor tells you ahead of time, look, you're going to be forced to get your water from the city unless you just want to dig your own well. Well, now, the price of a well, if anyone's been putting in a well, I'm putting in 2 wells right now. We're looking at about 2 wells. It's going to cost us probably between $12,000 and $14,000 and been waiting over a year to get them in. So isn't that interesting? So you buy a new house, and now you try to put as much down on the house as you can to keep your mortgage payment as low as you can, and then all of a sudden, why, you can't put as much money down on that if you got to put a well in. So now you're paying higher interest on your mortgage. Or let's say you just bought it outright and you had the cash to buy it outright. Now you got to turn around and take more cash somewhere, $12,000 to $14,000, and put it in a well. But you can't use, because you don't have water in your house, so you can't use your house for maybe a year until you get somebody in the well, somebody out there with a well driller to put you in a well. So how is that going to work for anybody except they have another house somewhere they can live in and they can wait a year and they got the cash to do it? Do you see, when it says they're not forced, that's not true. You're forced by the circumstances. Yes, you are free to say, I don't want water in this house that's already hooked up for water. And you can just not have water for a year. Maybe you pay people double, they'll come in twice as fast. I'm not going to have it for 6 months. I'm not going to have water, and we're just going to live in our old house if you got it. You're forced. Then it comes down to zoning. Now the county's got different rules for zoning. The county is very liberal, free. You basically can do about what you want out there in the county, and you're free. And this is what people enjoy so much about living out of the city limits. But all of a sudden, you buy a house outside the city, you don't want to be in the city, or you inherit a house from your uncle or whatnot, you don't want to be in the city. Well, now you're in the city, and you're in the city with all its rules. So let's say, like for example, we've got 30 acres here. I'm not allowed to have chickens. I can't have chickens, I can't have goats, I can't have turkeys, any poultry. I don't even know if we can have rabbits. So automatically, to get the water, you're just giving up all kind of freedom. Your rights have just been taken from you just because you needed the water that was supplied to your house. So they say the zoning will work well for you. I say, how? How is the zoning? All zoning is about is restricting what you're allowed to do with your property. How could zoning possibly work well for anybody? And then, of course, we get the final selling point. It's the last one, because all the rest, I don't see them as beneficial. And the last one, finally, everybody else is doing it. Westminster's doing it. Senate is doing it. What's wrong with us doing it? And folks, that brings me to why I got into politics. You know, I raised my family here. We moved to the area in 2002, and because we wanted a fine place to raise our kids. We had drug them all around. We had drug them from Chicago to Texas to South America, and we just needed a nice, peaceful place to raise our children. And my cousin lived in the area, and so we found this place, and this is the best place on earth. I don't know, you folks from Walhalla, you know how, in the area, Coney County, how wonderful it is here. But I've lived all over this country. I have lived in foreign countries. I've visited more foreign countries. And you got the best place. Why do you think everybody on the lakes, why they're there? And so what happened, this was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, this past February, my father-in-law, who is Southerner, he's from Alabama, as my wife is, and he called me up at work and he said, Grant, he says, you're not going to believe what's going on, but there is a county council meeting going on tonight, and this is the last reading. That means if they pass this ordinance they're looking at right now, it's going to restrict how people can use their land on all the major roads. You know, on 28, on 123, on 76, on 59, on all the major roads, 183. They were saying, this group of people that had pushed this, and the council had already gone, I think, past two readings, and I think in county council they have to do 3. It already passed 2 readings. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to tell the people who lived on those roads how they had to build their buildings. How much rock they had to have on the face of their buildings, how much wood they had to have on the face of their buildings, how many windows they had to have on the face of their buildings. They all of a sudden, and what it was a bunch of Yankees, because the guy that spoke before me was the one that said this, and he had 1,000 signatures from a bunch of Yankees, I think primarily, he was one, about saying how we don't want it to become like Easley. We don't want to become ugly like Easley and what have you. And so, but my father-in-law called me up and said, Grant, they're going to do this. And he knew that I would speak. I didn't even know where the county council offices were. When we moved down here, you know, I married into the South, and I'm just glad that they'll have me. I'm just glad that you'll all have me. I have nothing to criticize about anything here. And this is what I said when I got up to speak, and that man had just finished with his 1,000 signatures and how he just wanted it all pretty, and they didn't want to look at the rest of our junk. That's what he was saying in essence. And when he said that, and I just felt like, you know what? I have nothing to say to tell the people that live here how to run their lives and what they should do. Because you know what? We Yankees screwed it up north. We screwed it up. So why are we going to come down here and screw it up for everybody that hasn't screwed it up? So I'm like, I don't want to say anything. But when he said that, I'm like, dude, you're trying to screw it up down here just like we screwed it up there. When I say higher taxes, that's the thing. And they're going to have higher taxes here? My brother-in-law just looked in to what his home, comparable size home that we have right here, what his home in a suburb outside of Chicago pays in taxes now. I think we pay in taxes $1,700 for this home. For a comparable home that he used to own, he just checked on it, it's public record, $17,000. $17,000. 10 times the taxes. Why do you think all the Yankees are down here? They're down here because they're done going through all that liberal crap up there. But they come down here, not all of them, so many of them, most of them actually, are down here escaping it. And they're escaping it, and they don't want to, they're just tickled to be here and go along. But folks, they tried to do that, the county, and I saw that. Then I started paying attention to the city. And what do you know? It's not the Yankees any longer. It is people right here are going and making the mistake that we made. And so I thought, my neighbors have shared with this family like you can't imagine. They live their life in Walhalla. They're kind. To even the Yankee that moves in. They want to see his kids have clothes and food And when we came with 11 kids, we were barely hanging on. And our neighbors knew none of this, but they kept showing up at the door, introducing themselves. Can you use these clothes? We were going to go to Salvation Army. We're going to go to Goodwill. Can you use these clothes? It wasn't just clothes. It was bicycles. It was furniture. It was a plow. One old fella went down the road, saw me plowing a garden. I don't garden because I love to garden. I garden because we had to eat. And he saw us plowing, me and the neighbor, with a board behind a lawn tractor, laying out rows. He saw, I hadn't seen anything like that. He goes, I hadn't even seen that in Vietnam when I was there. And he brings me a push plow. He said, people have been trying to get this push plow from me to hang on their wall. Man, when I saw you doing that, I want you to have this push plow. Man, we wore that push plow out. That was a blessing. Christmas comes, Thanksgiving comes, and they know nothing. We never told our needs to anyone but God. They knew nothing, and they just showed up. And I would say, why? Why are you coming by with all this stuff? Why are you coming by with all this stuff? What do you know about our needs? And this is the answer. Whenever I'd ask it, this would be the answer. They said, how many kids do you have? And I said, well, I got 11 kids. Oh, I don't know how many kids you have, but we see them out gardening, we see them all around, and we just know, man, with all those kids, I got 2 kids, I got 3 kids, and we're barely getting by. I can't imagine how you feeding those kids and clothing those kids. I'm standing for them. Because if this stuff keeps going on, if we keep going on to this, hunting the money, trying to make the town a trendy town, we keep doing that, it's what happens. Your taxes are going to run, and everyone's going to mock this, but I know where it's going because I live this. We live this up north. When all of a sudden, appearance is more important than people, it gets expensive, and then the people get run out of town because they can't afford it. And I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it again, and over and over and over, is that you're going to make this town so expensive that the people that grew up here aren't going to be able to live here. And they keep talking about the quality of life. Oh, we need the money. We need the money. That's all this annexation is about. We need the money because with the money, we can improve the quality of life. They do not understand what life is. Life is not about the amount of trees you got on Main Street, the amount of people you got walking up and down Main Street, the amount of bars you have on Main Street, and even the amount of churches you have on Main Street. It has nothing to do with that. What quality of life is your neighbor that doesn't know you takes of what little he has and shares it with you. That's the town I moved into. And that's the majority of the people still here. But folks, we better start caring. Folks of this town, Walhallans, you better start caring about the politics. Because they're running roughshod over you. The liberal establishment, the hoity-toity few, show up to vote. And they don't know need. And because they've never known need, they don't feel. They don't notice the people. They don't notice the Latins on the mill hill struggling to get by. They don't notice the people working the shift work to get by. They don't notice the blue-collar man because they have never had to worry about paying a bill. They've never had the bill sitting in front of them and saying, well, I do not have the money to pay the light, the gas, the water this month. I don't know what we're going to do. Since they don't feel your pain, they keep on frittering the money away on appearances. And if they get what they want, if they continue to get what they want, most of the blue collar, the people that, and it's not that white collar can't care and can't learn that. I grew up white collar. By the grace of God, he slapped me upside the head. So he can do this with others too. But the vast majority of the people in this town are going to have to leave this town, and it's going to be, as I said before, just like Highlands. Just like Highlands, where the people that grew up there can no longer live there, and you can't afford to live there, and now only comes is tourists. That's all that you will see, and people don't have anything to do with their neighbors or caring for their neighbors. The culture that makes this town the best place on earth to live is gone. And it might be pretty, but it sucks. Because I worked as doorman for the richest, some of the richest people in this country, in Chicago. And rich people, just generally, I'm saying, don't care a lick about anyone but themselves. Generally. That's not everybody. Thank God, I think Donald Trump is different. So anyhow, I didn't plan to tell you all that. What I just planned to tell you is that we need you, and we need you people in Walhalla. In Walhalla, even though this doesn't affect you. You're already in, you're already locked up with the rules, your water's already secure and all that, but you need to show up for the people that are living around this town. Because they ask you, when you stand, they ask you, give us your address. When you come up to council and you stand there, give us your address. And they're sitting there thinking, oh, that guy, he's not a voter. He lives just outside the city limits. So I'm not really going to listen to him. I'm telling you, you still need to come. All you folks living right around the city limits, you need to come and tell them, well, hey, you do this. We're going to be in the city limits in an instant when you do that. And then we'll be voting. And then we'll be voting. But I'm talking to the Walhalla residents right now. Folks, you need to show up right here. This Tuesday, March 25th at the depot at 5:30, and you need to stand up just like you came out and you saw that my kids were clothed and my kids were fed and we had everything. You need to do that for your neighbors right outside the city limits, because they have to listen to those people, because they're going to give their address and they're going to say, well, I live on Pine Street, or I live on Church Street, or I live on John Street, or I live on the Mill Hill. And when they hear that, they're like, oh, these are voters, these are voters, these are voters. So come and stand up and do that. I know you care because you cared for me. But we need to start caring enough. We need to realize this way we're going. This annexation, this taking of people's rights who live right outside of town. This isn't how we want to do things. We want to do better than that. So we'll see. I hope we see it. I don't expect they'll be crying then. So you are always welcome. If all this was very confusing, a lot of detail, if you have any questions, please call me. I will talk to anybody that wants to call and explain all this with you. Come to my house, we'll get out the Monopoly board, we'll set all the houses up, and I'll show you just how it works. So, God bless you all, and thank you.